So I'm still playing. Beginning of a new week, kind of nice to take a break from this one and get back to it with some fresh eyes. As you can see, I haven't touched anything on the roof. I did a little bit of cleanup here, but it's still too tacky. It's just a little bit wet. That's that cad red. And I'm not going to work further on it. It's a little better than it was, but as I said before, I want that to be quite dry before I dig into it further. I did finish this wall on this side, up towards the bottom and down here, I think. And I thought, okay, next order of business, let's sort this stuff out. This land immediately adjacent to the doorway. And you'll probably remember that when I scrubbed it in, I got pretty glib about things, knowing that okay, I'd have to revisit it. I just wanted to establish the fact that this was getting darker as we came forward down to the bottom. I like the idea of a trail. It's not going to be very symmetrical, with your typical swale for a wheel and then a hump in the middle and then another swale. I kind of wandered off that path a little bit. You get a cross between the thing barely getting used and erosion over the years and, the thing never being really maintained, and you can end up with all kinds of stuff in there. What I did want to do is I'm still just putting in lines right now because now it's time I have to get down to the business of organizing all of this foreground. I'm pretty happy with what I have in here so far. The grassy area on the left here, as you can see, I've started at a bit of an angle like that, and then I worked myself forward, and I went like that, and now I'm working myself forward. I'm going like this. As I get forward, to help enhance the sense of foreshortening and give it more of a feeling of coming into the foreground, my lines are going to do this. Same idea with this path. We started up here doing this, and then we lowered, and we leveled it out a little bit. We level it out a little bit more, and as we come closer, I'm going to be doing kind of the same thing. Not saying that there will be lines radiating out from this area, but sort of give it a bit of that feeling. So I have to be kind of careful where I lay these lines and how I put them in. But I am beginning, this was a very strong line, and this was left open, and I think that I would like to indicate at least that maybe a little bit, not halfway through here, but halfway through here, that I have some sort of a rise in the path in places. Until I come to the foreground, in which case I don't need to worry so much about it, because it's all going to be low values and low chromas against other low values and low chromas, albeit there will be changes of color. So I'm just pecking away at it, thinking about where I'm going to lay things, and even though odds are this line that I'm putting in right now, it's very unlikely that I'm going to follow it exactly, but it's a guide, it's a reference point, it's an indexer in a sense, and then say, for example, that we come down to about here somewhere, and am I even still going to sweep up with my line? I don't know about that. Okay, so that's, this sort of idea. That's very boring. But as I say, those aren't the lines I'm going to follow. Those are just going to be somewhat of an indicator as to what's to come. So far I'm staying with this is yellow ochre and raw umber and a bit of white, titanium white. As I work my way down, I'm going to have the odd slash of, well, we're going to warm it up a little bit. We're going to keep that raw umber, yellow, ochre, and white. We're going to add a hint of alizarin crimson in a few spots. Then, as we move our way forward, we're probably going to go more into the purples. Not any of the purples that you see in the cabin or in the shed here, but more bluish purples to keep them cool, to keep them cold, to keep them out of the sunlight, lowering the temperature of it. That's the plan. That's how it sits so far. I may, I've scrubbed in here roughly what might be a rock, and maybe the beginning of a couple of rocks here, or maybe here. I don't know. It's really up to the painting. It's not up to me for the moment. If I find a rock to, the idea of some stones in the foreground or some bedrock showing, I'll go with that. And I don't have to make that decision until I get, well, further down the trail for starters, okay? And then I'll probably do a little more of this grassy area here. And that's when I'm going to be forced into deciding whether I put a boulder or a rock or something in the foreground. In the meantime, I've washed this in, but it's quite translucent. I'd like it to be strong. So we'll go dark. This is too dark, and I don't care. It's okay. I'm okay with that. It's easy enough to put a stone or two in here. That's not a problem. And seeing as I kind of like what I established here already, let me just continue that. Let me just continue that for a moment here. In fact, I'll take it right from here. Again, I'm not necessarily following those lines. And if I do follow them, often I'll just remove areas of them. So they're broken. I don't want a direct line down here. I wouldn't mind if it's indicated, but not too strongly. So you can see, I have my light basically coming from above and from the right a little bit, but it's not a clear blue sky. You know that there's going to be broken cloud. There's going to be indirect and diffuse light everywhere. So I've kept I've kept the shadows gradual from light to dark. From light to dark. I don't want hard lines in the shadows. If I were to end up with hard lines in the shadows, I would pretty much have to do this here as well. A very strong line between dark and light, which would repeat this, which wouldn't work very well there anyway. If anything, we want to be sort of gradual. Reserve the hard lines for the actual structure itself, and certain areas in the foreground, but not just light to shadow. Light to shadow. So let's see here. Shall I? that's enough lines for the moment. Now I have the nerve. Oh, the nerve of that guy. Right now I have the nerve to be able to work my way down just a couple of inches. And from there I can go down just a couple more inches. I'm being very messy and tentative about my strokes right now, because you know, once you invest this much into your work, you don't just want to go, oh, I'm just sick of this right now, I'm going to go willy-nilly. And the tendency is there to do that. And that's not so bad on a wash-in, but when you're actually making your painting, yeah, you definitely want to pay attention to what you're doing. You really don't want to. It becomes so, you set yourself up for a lot of extra work for no good reason, really, because you will screw it up, and then at some point you'll say to yourself, why was I in such a rush? Because now I've got a lot more work to do to fix to make up for my impatience. You know, it's like I was told in construction years ago. I spent most of my life, my earlier years, in construction, and the saying kind of went: if there were mistakes were made, then you'd say to somebody, "Oh, so lots of time to do it twice, but not enough time to do it right the first time." Anyway, that was tongue in cheek, because everybody screws up. Alright, I think that's enough of that. I'm going to take a little bigger brush. I'm going to continue with my yellow ochre and raw umber. We'll get a little bit darker in here. Is that dark enough? Yeah, let's say that is. And if it's too dark, it's easy to go lighter. If it's too light, it's harder to go darker. It's very difficult to make good, clean strokes laying dark over light. And keep the technique clean, you know? And obviously with a painting like this, you need your technique to look pretty clean. Just a hint of alizarin crimson there. Raising the temperature of the color, but actually, because you're dropping your value, it appears to be more in shadow. And then when I begin to add blues to that, then we're really cooling off things. I want this to be warmer than the grass on either side, or the rocks, or any rocks that I may or may not put in there, because this is still more important than this or this. Alright, I'll just square off briefly so you can see things more clearly in proportion. You know, except for the hills in the distance, there is really virtually no single bit of subject matter on this painting that is finished. But it's certainly heading in the right direction. I really am quite pleased with how things are going. See that addition of alizarin crimson just warms it up just a little bit. This is beginning to look quite storybookish, and that's good. I don't mind. I like the look of storybookish. There's a lot of clarity there. There's a lot of definition, a lot of vividness to my eye. Okay, see you soon, guys.